I laughed in my dad's face after my mom turned down his marriage proposal. Plus update. Original post. Something important before starting is that I'm 27 male and my parents never married. My paternal grandfather married my grandma after she got pregnant with his first son, my dad, and when the second baby came, he found out it wasn't his, but couldn't divorce her because our family was extremely religious, and divorce would not be on the table for him since it would mean all his family would cut him off, and he stayed with her until she passed away. My dad, who saw how unhappy his father was and how it affected his own life and his half-siblings too, decided he wouldn't marry until he had 2 kids of his own blood with his girlfriend. To be fair, he did talk with my mom about it, and initially she was okay with it, since she understood how it affected him. I honestly somehow do too, but it still seemed unfair to my mom. As a kid, I didn't understand at the time, and as a teenager, I didn't feel in the right to butt in or say anything. Well, my parents had me and were happy, but there were no marriage plans yet. But it was fine. They just needed to have another child. So they tried for years and years and years. And now here we are, his only son almost in his 30s, and they are still not married. My mom had fertility issues, but she wasn't infertile, and they attempted to get pregnant for many years despite the difficulties, but they never could. My mom suggested going for adoption, but it didn't align with my dad's self-imposed rule of having 2 biological children with his partner to marry, so he declined. They eventually stopped trying and seemed okay together, but my mom constantly asked to get married since they had been together since high school. But my dad did not want that because he wanted to marry after having 2 children, which was now off the table. So eventually my mom gave up and stopped asking. With that said, there was never an issue out of it that affected me directly until a few years ago. See, as I'm an only child, my parents kind of expected me to give them a grandchild, and when my parents, or should I say my dad, decided to stop trying for another baby, they agreed that they would marry when I had my own child. I didn't know it until 2 years ago, because a few years ago I came out as gay, and evidently I won't have any biological kids. I don't discard the possibility of adoption, but it's not in my plans, and my dad wanted a bio-grandson. So, unintentionally, I destroyed that last hope of them helping raise my child to finally get married. Although I know it's not my fault, but my dad's ridiculous norm he had for himself, so I don't feel one bit guilty or any remorse. At this point, my mom doesn't even care about marriage anymore. She is 58, and even before I revealed I was gay, she didn't think she would ever get married to my dad because of how much he seemed to have in his requirements to compromise. A few days ago, my parents, 2 of my aunts, my uncle, my dad's half-brother, and I were celebrating my mom's birthday, and she was having a nice time. She was smiling a lot, and we were giving her our gifts for her to open on the spot. When it was my dad's turn, it was one of the first gifts. She opened it, and it was a small box. No, it wasn't a ring box. It was like the size of a necklace box, so it wasn't that obvious at the moment. And when she opened it, there was a paper that said, "Would you marry me?" She turned to my dad, who was getting on one knee, taking out an engagement ring from his pocket and waiting for my mom's response, who was looking at him with a strange look that almost made me laugh by how serious she was. She looked at him, then at my family, who were visibly more shocked than her. I was too. But I was kind of just staring blankly, so apparently no one other than my dad knew about his proposal plans. And she just said, let's not spoil the moment right now. Let me open the rest of the gifts." My dad apparently was shocked by how indifferent my mom was, and sat down without saying anything, while my mom went back to cheerfully open the rest of her gifts, and the rest of the family was also enthusiastic about it. Maybe a bit too excessively, but I guess it was to avoid thinking of the awkward moment that had just happened. And after enjoying the meal, we all went to our homes. Well, that was 2 days ago, and today my dad asked if he could come to my home and I said yes. I thought he was going to vent about what happened at my mother's birthday, and I was totally right. He cried a bit, stating how he had planned to propose to my mom after thinking a lot about it, that he was now ready, and that he wanted to spend the rest of his life with her, that he couldn't believe she humiliated him like that in front of the family. The whole time I had to keep a straight face, But it was so difficult because of my dad's nonsense, until he said the last phrase and I couldn't hold back anymore and started laughing my butt off. Obviously, he got mad and asked me why I was making fun of him. I don't hate my dad, but I was a little too mean to him and said a lot of stuff I didn't say as a teenager, and even as an adult, because it wasn't my business how they handled their relationship. To summarize, I told him something like, "I don't know what you expected after leaving my mom waiting for almost 40 years for a proposal. You didn't need to wait for her to get pregnant again just because that old hag was a cheater. Or did you think my mom was a cheater too? If she was a cheater, why did you stay? If you knew she wasn't, what was the point of that stupid goal of having 2 children to prove she wasn't having an affair?" And I kept going off on him for like 40 minutes. He was so shocked I raised my voice to him, since I have never done that to anyone. He stayed quiet during my whole rant, and when I finished, he just avoided looking at me and simply apologized. I gave him some coffee before he left, so he would calm down and possibly talk to my mom. I think they will get married, but I was so annoyed that he decided to do it at the worst moment, in the worst place, and in front of everyone. And then complained he felt humiliated as if my mom wasn't waiting for him for decades for him to not even consider marriage until they got old. Bruh. I just wanted to rant. Sorry for the long text, lol. Now for the top comments before reading the update. This whole story is nuts. Good on your mom for not giving in to the pressure of a public proposal to say yes, and good on you for getting his butt about it after the fact. Yeah, I actually never thought he would ever propose, and I was kind of anxious that she would say yes after all of that. I know she loves him and won't leave him, but it was satisfying to see her reject him for the first time. Fingers crossed he also loves her enough to accept her perspective. I worry that he'll harangue her about what he wants like. He has all these decades, and harass her that she owes him for humiliating him. They had found an equilibrium, unspoken as it appears to be. Your father sent a tremor through their foundations by his public proposal, and it seems he's doing nothing to shore them back up. See also his rant to you. I hope you giving him a reality check has helped him wake up to a new humility. Imagine spending 40 years with someone before deciding to spend the rest of your life with them. What in the world? The stupidest part is how they could have just said, "Yeah, we want to stay together for life, but we don't want to marry yet," and maybe change their mind later. But nope, he just had to hold it like a carrot in front of her as if to keep her going? Like what? Good on her for being like, "Uno, I'm just happy being with you. I don't care about the marriage part anymore." Even though I'd personally not stay with a person acting that way for all their adult life. This is exactly what bothers me the most. I never wanted to make fun of my dad for his trauma because my grandma not only was a cheater, but also an abuser. She would hit both my dad and my uncle. So even if his condition was a bit unreasonable, as I said, it wasn't in my hands and maybe it was his way to seek reassurance. But after he changed the condition to me having kids for them to get married, was where I felt like he just wanted to find any excuse to just not marry my mom, or to postpone it the longest he could, which is pretty messed up, honestly. Now for the update. Before updating, I want to respond to questions that either didn't seem really relevant, since not a lot of people mentioned them, and I didn't want to repeat myself too much in the comments where it could be lost easily. Why did my mom stay with my dad? To summarize and not repeat too much of the same, she always has told me she thinks he is the one, even if they don't get married. She told me this when I was around 17 years old, and that's more or less the time I low-key realized she gave up on marriage. I knew since I was a child that they weren't married because my aunts and even my uncle would ask my dad when he was going to propose, and he always found a way to evade the subject. So yeah, I feel bad saying it, but my mom doesn't know how to let go of him. So now on to the actual update. My dad didn't talk to me during these days. I don't know if it was because he was angry at me or felt embarrassed, or both. But I wasn't going to apologize or go ask him what was going on with him, so I just went back to my own life, and if something happened, I would eventually know. The thing is that I didn't really think something would happen so quickly. Yesterday, both my parents came to my house. Surprisingly, my mom seemed angry, and my dad's face looked like my mom gave him an earful. When they both went in, my mom, still angry, smacked my dad's arm and told him something like, "Now tell him." So it turns out my parents didn't talk until yesterday morning since my mother's birthday. My mom avoided him like the plague despite my dad trying to talk to her, which made him more frustrated. Eventually, my dad begged my mom to talk to him and said he didn't know what to do, that no one was supporting him, and that I even laughed at him. My mom said something like, "No, of course Opie did not do that, because when it was the moment of the proposal, no one was laughing or saying anything, so my mom thought he was talking about that moment." But then my dad spilled the beans and told her he visited me to rant, and I gave him the cold shoulder, telling him his truths, and that he couldn't believe I would talk to him like that, and so on. She then became extremely angry and went off on him because he was pushing me into a problem that did not concern me, dragged him to my house, and forced him to apologize to me. I genuinely haven't seen her this angry, and it both amused me because of how defeated my dad looked and scared me a little. My dad apologized like 4 times before my mom was satisfied because he first wouldn't look me in the eyes. My mom demanded that he look at me, and when he did, he said it in a monotonous voice, and my mom told him to change his tone. At some point, I couldn't hold my smile because what was this situation? My dad was acting like a kid, and my mom was raging so hard the whole situation was kind of comical. Eventually, my dad gave me a proper apology, and just to not let a laugh escape, I just nodded so they would stop. My mom, after all of that, gave me an actual apology in the name of her and my dad, saying they wouldn't bother me with their own problems again, which is not really what I wanted. So I told her that she could share her worries with me if she wanted, and that my door was always open for her. I looked at my dad and told him that it applied to him too, but did not expect me to enable his poor judgment or decisions, and he just nodded. I think he was embarrassed, so I left it alone. I don't think my dad will speak about this incident again, since he tends to avoid topics that make him look bad, but we will talk again. Even with all this stupidity, he is my dad, and I do love him. My mom, however, did talk to me over the phone last night when they arrived home. I asked her what she was going to do about the marriage, and she said very firmly she didn't want to marry my dad anymore, which actually surprised me because I was convinced she would temporarily reject my dad and eventually accept. But I was wrong. Of course, time will tell, but the conversation with her makes me believe she will stay firm about her decision. She told me that, even after my dad avoided compromising, she still loved him, and she didn't see herself with anyone else. She told me he doesn't mistreat her, he provides for her well with both money and physical affection, and that she has plenty of time to go out with her friends and to do as many things as she wants, which, good for her if she wants to keep that lifestyle. But that her time to get married was something she already let go a long time ago, and that planning a marriage seemed very tiring. Even if my family is not that religious anymore, they would definitely prefer a church wedding, which requires tons of preparation, and she is a bit too old for that. I was left a bit worried about her not having the benefits of marriage, but she told me she didn't think she needed them. She has a job of her own, she has her own savings, and that even if my dad were to suddenly pass away, she wouldn't live long either way, so it didn't really matter, which made me a bit sad to think about. But if she really doesn't want to get married to at least benefit more from it, I can't change her mind, and honestly, I don't really want to. My dad had plenty of time to propose and did it a bit too late. So yeah, that's how things are. I don't think I'll update again until something major happens, like my mom changing her mind on marriage or something of the sort. But again, she seemed firm about it, so possibly nothing will come out of that. I'll leave this account for some time and I'll delete it when I remember to come by again. Thanks for reading and saying my mom is great. I do agree that she is amazing. She has supported me all my life, even when I came out of the closet. She used to be extremely and openly homophobic, but made an actual effort to accept me and change her views on it. Same for my dad. I love both my parents, even if I'm flaming my dad online and laughing in his face lol, but I know he loves me too. He can't do much about marriage now, but since she won't leave him, hopefully he will treat my mom with more respect and will spend their days like a proper couple. Last story. I refused to help the daughters of the woman who broke my family. I, 31 male, grew up in a dysfunctional family. My dad had mental health issues and was somewhat of a junkie. My mom had anger issues and was emotionally neglectful. They fought constantly. When I was 9, my dad had an affair, just 2 months after my younger brother was born. That affair broke the family. He left for over a year. Eventually, he came back, but things were never the same. We later found out he had a daughter with the woman he had the affair with. He claimed he wasn't in touch with her anymore, but a few years later, we learned they had another child together. Things went downhill again, and eventually, he left us for good after another blowout with my mom. I was 16 when he just left. He left us the house, which we rented rooms from just to survive. After about 3 months, I reached out to him for help. Surprisingly, he agreed. It wasn't much, but he sent me a little money every month, and we kept in touch on and off since then. I didn't tell anyone for years, but eventually admitted it to my mom. I resented him for leaving us, but over time, our relationship became somewhat civil. He did what he could, and I helped him out when possible. A few years back, I even met my half-sisters, now 19 and 17, after he insisted. I didn't blame them. They didn't ask for the mess. I stayed in touch with them and offered help whenever I could, even though I was still facing my own mixed feelings about this. A few months ago, my dad passed away, just 2 months before his retirement. Since then, I've tried to support his other family discreetly, helping with things like his pension paperwork and even some of my younger half-sister's medical treatment. I never told my mom because it would only open old wounds. Here's the problem. I recently became a dad myself. I'm the main provider for my family, my mom, my now 20-year-old brother, who's in college, and my newborn son. My job is decent, but it doesn't leave much wiggle room. Last week, my older half-sister called and asked if I could help them pay their rent. I told her I couldn't. I've already stretched myself thin trying to keep my own household afloat, and this was just beyond what I could manage. She sounded upset, and even though she didn't guilt-trip me, I could tell they were desperate. I don't know what to do right now. While I'm under no obligation to help them, I'm also struggling to maintain my own finances. Am I in the wrong for not helping them in this case? Your own family comes first. Thanks. I haven't shared this with anyone else till now. OP, you cannot do it all, and I hope everyone appreciates your efforts. Not sure if your father had any benefits from work, a pension, or 401k that might give some financial support? I already stated that I helped them with the pension papers, and I didn't even take a penny from that even though I'm owed it.